It's time to take a ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive with our co-hosts, Alan Saunders and Zachary Smith.
Welcome into another episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive. I'm Zachary Smith. That is Alan Saunders. Alan, how are we feeling on this Victory Monday in Steelers Nation? I know as a non-fan, maybe that doesn't necessarily apply to you, but still you can feel that the vibes are pretty high.
Yeah, I guess. I
in my world they are. Sorry, I should specify.
Yeah,
in my world they are.
I gotta say, I mean, I don't come out of this with especially high vibes about the Pittsburgh Steelers. About where I thought they'd be at this point in the year, record-wise. Not at all really where I thought they'd be form-wise, play-wise. I don't know. I'm surprised more people are. I don't know. It seemed like a lot of the comments from this morning's Morning Rush, where I basically said, "Yeah, the Steelers are 3-1," but I don't know. It seems like a lot of people are feeling the Victory Monday vibes. I
think that's what it is. They kind of go with the ebbs and flows, though. For better or worse. I'm not saying that that's the wrong way. I mean, fan however you want to fan. But yeah, had they played the exact same way.
Yeah, but like people were very negative, even though the Steelers won 2 of their first 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So like I didn't think that one win where they still, kind of tried to give the game away in many respects would erase all that. I was a little surprised that it did.
And again, this is maybe where like a difference of opinion can come into play here. But like I said, when we were in post game, I was on the edge of my seat and felt like I shouldn't have been. To me, that was as dominating of a field goal win where the team had a chance to tie or win the game with the ball at the end of the game as it could have felt like. So like I felt like they played very well yesterday. I understand that they, tried to give it away towards the end there. But I think that's where my level of encouragement comes from, is because I felt like they really started to find an identity with the run game, playing Darnell as much as they did. Spencer Anderson, as we talked about yesterday in the post-game show, a nice addition as the jumbo tight end, extra offensive lineman, however you want to classify it. It just felt like the defense is starting to come into form. They're turning the football over. They're getting to the quarterback, and then the offense starting to find an identity. I understand what the first few weeks looked like. I thought, New England, to a degree, more so this game against Minnesota, they're going into the bye looking more like the team that I expected them to be. Personally. But I understand that that's not, doesn't have to be shared universally. Like I said, to each their own. Alan, I do want to mention this. You sent me what your schedule looked like for today. There were 7 different podcasts, video, radio hits, whatever you might want to call them. The most that I've ever done in one day is 5. So I sent you back the Jimmy Butler exhausted meme and said, this is going to be you by 7 p.m. My heart is with you today, pal.
We're getting
through. Most of these are actually knocked out of the way right now, though, right? You got most of these.
Yeah, we're almost done. The end is in sight.
The end is in sight. All right.
If I lose my voice on the Subs Only live stream, at least I'll have you and DB to help.
Yeah, DB actually showing up on Friday to go over this game. But Alan, one thing that we didn't have when we went through the post-game stuff was, reaction, if you will. Guys in the locker room talking. I don't want to keep rubbing it in that you were not boots on the ground for this one and had to watch like a normie on TV with the rest of us. But did you take anything away from, the bits and hits that we got following the game?
Yeah, our one commenter, Ray, is very upset that I wasn't there.
I missed this.
Commented about it like about 9 times over the last week. Yeah, it sucked, but it was would have been a significant portion of our travel budget and just not certainly not worth it for what those guys got over there. I didn't miss very much at all. I actually got a lot of good stuff in the locker room. Actually, kind of that's where I want to take this, is that I was able to listen to a good bit of locker room audio. And the one thing I want to talk about first that I feel like maybe has kind of gone under the radar a little bit in the last 24 to 28 hours is that a lot of players talked about Mike Tomlin's speech the night before the game.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it feels like Mike T gave an all-timer. Like this was like from the way guys were talking about it, this was an especially impactful speech on Saturday night before the game about Ambassador Dan Rooney and his impact on Mike Tomlin and why this game meant so much to not just the Steelers organization, but Tomlin himself. And man, that was, we talked a lot on Friday about the coaching matchup, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like a lot of times when people talk about the coaching matchup, they only ever bring up the X's and O's. I don't think there's any question when you go back and rewatch the game, the Steelers were the team that was more ready to play in this one from the very beginning. And that's something that, X's and O's can help, but there's like another layer there that we don't talk about probably enough that Mike Tomlin is something of an expert in.
Yeah, I think it was Faribault put it out. I think it was Peyton Wilson maybe that said like when you see your leader cry tears about their leader, like it really brings to light how impactful he obviously was and how much this meant for them. That might not have been word for word, but just taking it for what it was worth. So that's the one that stuck out to me for sure. I didn't realize there were other players that kind of weighed in on that same thing, but I mean, yeah, I guess those are like the things that are kind of hard to quantify, right? Like, how do you equate what that does for a football team? Like, you really can't put, because it's not a statistic or anything like that. Like, how do you weigh what that does for a football team over the course of a game?
You can't. There is no way you can quantify it. But I also don't think that just because we can't quantify it, we should pretend that it doesn't matter either. You remember the Steelers went to London in 2013 and very clearly felt like they weren't prepared to play that game. Now, when I talked to Cam Hayward and Ben Roethlisberger about that, they felt like it was about the sleep and the advantage that one team had over the other, but certainly an emotional investment in what's happening can be a part of that as well. I mean, how many times do you see a team kind of sleepwalk through an opponent that they should beat? How many times do you see or hear the notion that a team is going to get everybody's best game because they're the top dog on the block and they're the one that everyone wants to knock off? There are real emotions involved in real people, and the ability to pull those strings correctly is definitely something that not every coach is very good at. I think you can look at the Miami Dolphins right now and what's happening with them. I mean, there you have a coach that is an absolute bona fide X's and O's genius, a genius, probably the best X's and O's offensive coach in the NFL right now. Why are things failing? It's this other stuff. It's the stuff that you can't quantify that is not going right. And I think Mike Tomlin, very good at that. And hearing some of the interviews that I was sent, in tears, speaking to his team about Dan Rooney, about the opportunity that he was given as a young black defensive head coach at a time in the NFL where those opportunities were just simply not given. And the faith that Dan Rooney showed in him and his, desire to repay that faith by fulfilling Dan Rooney's vision of the Steelers returning to Ireland, playing a regular season game there, and of course winning it. And boy, and you could feel that in talking in those clips with those guys. And what a way to connect all those dots from Mike Tomlin as well.
Why didn't I take this in consideration when we were picking the game? That should count for at least like, I don't know. I had them losing by a touchdown. That's a touchdown. That's a touchdown right there. That's worth. No, but in all seriousness, that is, there's no way to quantify. I would kind of drop in the same bucket in terms of like what you see, like pull up. People talk about the first game after a coach is fired. That's kind of where I thought you were going with the Miami thing. Could potentially see it in Tennessee this year too. I'll be interested to see like
next week
what happens. what happens immediately after that. That's on a head coaching level, but even just from like an offensive coordinator perspective, everybody remembers the first game after Matt Canada was fired in Pittsburgh. They go out and immediately have a 400-yard game in Cincinnati. It seemed like a lot of people had a lot of things to prove in that one. But yeah, that's interesting. Anything else from the players post game or anything that you thought was interesting?
Yeah, a genuine seeming desire to return to Ireland. Like I definitely felt like the players really enjoyed their time there. I know I had talked to some guys before the game who had been there before, who were really looking forward to it, and a lot of guys who really didn't have any idea what to expect. And it definitely felt like the players felt welcomed, felt like it was a good stage for the NFL to be playing on, and really loved the atmosphere of all the Steelers fans there, of course. But just a seemingly genuine desire to say we should definitely be doing this again. You do not always get that from NFL players. A lot of times, I don't think any of the Steelers players in 2013 were saying, "Yeah, let's go play in London right now next year." That's a little bit.
I think
different.
there's one player that said he didn't want to go back to Ireland.
I don't even want to. I don't even want to speak for him. Maybe Skylar Thompson enjoyed his street fight / assault, whatever you want to call it.
Maybe, yeah. He's like, hey, I'm not getting into the game. Let me see some action here. I don't know. That's still so crazy to me. But anyway, yeah. I mean, hey, it sounded like coming off the field. If we had another game in Ireland next year, you might get Aaron Rodgers to sign up for a second year in Pittsburgh just based off that.
Only if he can go for the whole week, though.
Yeah, that's true. So we might need the NFL to come into play there, and maybe
Aaron will just only sign with the Steelers the week. Sorry, you got to play with the backup the first 3 weeks. I'll come in week 4 so I can spend the first month of the season in Ireland.
Yeah, let Mendoza get his feet wet early on. Bring in Aaron for that week. No, but all right. In all seriousness, anything else then before we get to some questions from the audience and stuff here?
No, I don't. I mean, a lot of guys giving some well-deserved shout-outs to some of their other players. I just felt like, especially rewatching it, the impact of Darnell Washington in this game, significant. Spencer Anderson, significant. Deshaun Elliott, Brandon Eccles. The Steelers have a lot of stars, and certainly guys like DK Metcalf, Nick Herbig, TJ Watt, we're used to them making plays that take over games, whether it's for the Steelers or for somebody else in Metcalf's case. I really feel like the Steelers won this game because they got really like about a 40-man deep level of big contributions. James Pierre, Ben Skoranek, all the way down. Like it was a real solid team effort, and I think that is necessary a lot of times, but it's a good feeling when that's able to happen.
That's true. I mean, we mentioned we didn't feel like Minnesota necessarily had like a ton of star power on the defensive side, but we know how good their receivers are. I know, their right tackle in this game got hurt. But Darisaw is a very good left tackle. And by the way, as we mentioned, Nick Herbig does not care about that. He's still going to get his, and he had a fantastic game. But typically, I would say a lot of the time, those players at the top almost cancel out. And then, the Steelers supporting cast was just better than the Vikings supporting cast in this one. You mentioned Darnell Washington. Alan, I feel like we just got to talk about the elephant in the room here because somebody brought him up. And I almost didn't.
He's big, but he is not an elephant. He's not.
I'm actually not talking about Darnell here.
He's only like 300 pounds.
I'm not talking about Darnell. Actually, I'm talking about somebody else in that same room. We got to talk about Pat because somebody brought up Pat on here in the comments, and I almost didn't even want to say this on here because I feel like it's going to have the reverse effect, and more people are going to do it. But it seems like every time something happens with Pat, people feel the need to DM me or tweet me just as they know that we're boys. And I wish that wouldn't happen. I have no impact on what he does on the field. And I don't know what else you want me to say about it, but I am biased. I'm not blind, and can 100% have an actual conversation about what's going on the field with number 88. So Zach Howe, great first name, says, Alan, can we have a real conversation about Freiermuth? I know that you both really like him, but something seems off here.
No, I think something seems off here is absolutely correct. All the way around. I don't now, like, I can explain the usage in 1 week. I mean, I think it was clear that the Steelers looked at what happened with the running game the first 3 weeks, said that can't continue, looked at their options for trying to jumpstart the running game and decided that playing their tight ends that block more than their tight ends that catch, both Connor Hayward and Darnell Washington outsnapped both Pat Freiermuth and Jonnu Smith. Oh, and Spencer Anderson did as well. So
yeah,
the 6th offensive linemen, the 2 blocking tight ends, all played more than the 2 receiving tight ends. I think that's not a Pat Freiermuth thing, right? Like that's no one's, you how many questions did you get on Twitter about Jonnu Smith today?
none.
He had just as much of an impact in this game as Pat Freiermuth did, which was to say basically nothing, at least nothing positive. Now, Freiermuth had the big mistake on special teams, cost the team 3 points, added a whole bunch of stress to the game. Certainly understanding of that part of things. But clearly this was a decision from Arthur Smith to say, look, our offensive line isn't blocking very well. How can we fix that? How can we still find a way to run the ball? And this is the answer they come up with. I don't think that answer is going to be something that's going to work all season long. So I don't expect that trend to continue. I will say on top of that, though, we have seen Aaron Rodgers and Pat Freiermuth not on the same page. Some frustration from Aaron Rodgers. I think I've seen some frustration from Pat Freiermuth. Clearly, these guys are still trying to figure this relationship out and trying to work together. And it hasn't necessarily been smooth sailing in the first quarter of the season. But I don't think there's anything like going on or mystical about what's happening beyond this, other than very uncharacteristic blocking laps on a chip shot field goal. And look, sometimes when things aren't going well in other areas, people let that slip in. That is a natural human thing. I'm not saying that's definitely what happened here, but I'm saying that's not unheard of or anything suspicious either.
Yeah, he had played 2 snaps through the first quarter and a half of this game. And like you said, you can chalk it up to just being game script. They realized what they needed to do in this game and were obviously successful in doing it, really leaned into what was working, and that's completely fine. I think the big thing here for a lot of people, though, is when you look at an offense that typically has not, at least recent memory, given out those second contracts. They actually did pay this guy. He's the 8th highest paid tight end, and you look at his stat line for the year, and he's got 7 catches and 65 yards through 4 weeks. Did he even get targeted in this game at all? I don't think so. Certainly didn't have a reception in this game. I think that those come into play, and then obviously the just complete whiff on the field goal block is going to play into that as well. I don't think that he's playing super well right now. I do think that there are still a lot of people, and this is again my opinion. Yes, I'm biased, but I said this even before we became friends. Was I feel like I have seen strides taken in the blocking department. I don't think he's like a complete zero in that area now. Where a lot of people now bring that up all the time.
I'm pretty sure there was a quote from me early in this podcast where I think I said Pat Freiermuth was blocking like someone who asked to never block again. He significantly got better. There's no question about that. Which also makes the special teams thing look out of character, because he was doing that even when he wasn't blocking well. And now he's been much better. There's a lot of playmakers on this offense. There's going to be days where it's not your day, and it's not a dynamic offense overall. So there are a lot of options and there are a few opportunities. And I think that is just going to be the way it's going to go. I think you can say the same thing about the Steelers secondary. Jabril Peppers didn't play in this game at all. It just wasn't the right matchup, the right opportunity. There wasn't the right need. We've seen Cole Holcomb go from playing not at all to playing half a game to back to playing almost not at all. When you have a veteran team, a deep team, I think these are good problems to have long term, as long as the coaching staff is clearly communicating, hey, this is why we're not playing you. This is what we want to see better. This is the matchup that we think we like better than the matchup that involves you. You know, as long as all that stuff is being communicated and there isn't internal strife, the idea that you have more than you need is a great thing. If you can go out there and win and execute the game plan the way you thought, and you still have guys you say, hey, didn't really use Calvin Austin in this game. Oh, by the way, didn't really use him either. Didn't really use Pat Freiermuth in this game. Weren't able to use Jalen Warren. Didn't really use Jonnu Smith, and still were able to beat a pretty good Minnesota team. That's a positive, as long as the other stuff doesn't become a negative.
Right. I think that's the big thing is you have to have the internal buy-in from these guys and, nobody become a problem child, if you will, when this is the kind of the way that the division of labor can go in any given week. And, when it's still early, they're still probably trying to figure a lot of this out. So while let's take Pat out of the equation and just talk about the tight end usage in general, the 11, 12, 13 personnel, that I feel like has looked like what we thought it to, but you brought up Jonnu within that equation too, not talked about as much, at least to me. It hasn't been what we expected from that group yet in terms of their involvement in the passing game. And, we talked about it being a prime opportunity for a guy like Roman Wilson with Calvin Austin out, but maybe it's the tight ends that we really start to see the passing game funnel through, other than DK Metcalf, obviously.
I think the tight ends will have to become a bigger part of the receiving equation with Calvin Austin out, and I would assume that you're going to see Pat Freiermuth be a part of that.
And they got the bye week now to kind of figure some things out and what it's going to look like on the other side of that.
I guess we should talk about the injuries very briefly. Reported by Jerry Dulac, multi-week absences for both Ramsey and Austin. If you're going to miss one, you're going to miss two, because it's a road Thursday night football game in week 7. Yeah. So you're not going to return anybody in that week. The big question mark for me remains Jalen Warren. Haven't heard anything at all about what the prognosis is for him. Very confusing. Was basically told he was fine leading up to this game, and then he wasn't able to play.
Something very clearly happened during his warm-up, right? I mean,
that seems likely. Yeah. But then what was it? Was it simply, hey, he goes to a trainer and says, this feels weird, maybe let's not push it? Or did something significant happen that is now going to cause a longer absence? I don't know the answer to that. And then I do feel good about Joey Porter Jr. and Alex Highsmith getting back after the bye.
Yeah.
And I should add as well, Will Howard, Corey Trice, and Dante Kent all available to return should they be needed to return. So I will
Trice think one might be more important than we thought. Right away.
I do think you will get Will Howard back. They've been playing with two quarterbacks. I don't see any reason for that to continue. So I think they will get Will Howard back. And it would not totally surprise me, especially with Ramsey looking like he might miss some time, to see Corey Trice back as well.
The Ramsey thing is interesting because, I know that he, came back afterwards, but then I thought he went back out, but then he was in on the kneel down as well, as that last man back. So just kind of confusing kind of the way that they dealt with that in game, the hamstring injury to me.
Yeah. I mean, I
would have sent him back out there to begin with. I understand that they ended up being more shorthanded because Eccles was cramping up or whatever as well. But I mean, that didn't happen until after they had already decided to throw Ramsey back out there after he, whatever.
I mean, they only had two other corners. So they can't play their defense without Ramsey at that point. I kind of get it. I don't know how, hamstrings are tough. So I think there's reason to be cautious, especially again with the short turnaround after the first week. Wouldn't surprise me to see Ramsey.
I've probably been playing DK Metcalf at defensive back, I think, late in that game. I'm just joking, but am I really?
I mean, it brings up an interesting question as to what they would have done.
Yeah.
Maybe one.
Well, Jabril Peppers did not play any snaps, so you could have used Thornhill or Elliott at corner.
maybe Thornhill at corner, and then you play Peppers or Clark at free safety. I don't think any of their. I mean, maybe. I don't really think Ben Skoranek. I don't know. If you're playing an offensive player, that would be the one I would pick. But I mean, I don't know.
No, I mean, just because he probably would have ended up getting an interception or like forcing a recover and a fumble. Like
it would have. He didn't have a catch, did he? It would have been really very Ben Skoranek coded game if he ended up having an interception and no reception.
Yes. One thing that we did talk about yesterday, kind of wrapped up the post-game show talking about, was you brought up to me, do I feel any different quarter of the way through the season? And I don't know if I feel necessarily different about the Steelers as much as I feel different about the landscape of both the division and the conference, the entire AFC, to be quite honest with you. And I feel like Norm's question here kind of plays into that. Seeing as how the Steelers have a golden opportunity to win the division with the Ravens and Bengals having hurt quarterbacks, should the Steelers make a trade to bolster their chances?
Should they? Yes. Will they be able to? Very question.
Still in that part of the season to me where it's like, we know that the Titans aren't making any noise. We know that the Dolphins are not making any noise. But internally, are they willing to deal yet from their roster? I don't even know who the Titans would. Maybe Calvin Ridley. I don't know if they would be willing to do that. But we know that the Dolphins, obviously, they have Tyreek Hill. Would the Steelers be interested still in that with what's going on? I don't know. But these teams that you're kind of waiting to fall out of the race to see if they would be willing to make a move. 4 games into it, nobody's in that spot yet. So it's kind of hard to say. And also, like, what are I know everybody keeps going back to Pat, people keep trying to throw these players into these trades. And we know, like, the Steelers would certainly love to hold on to their draft picks. So is that a more feasible route? It's just those scenarios are so few and far between. It's kind of hard to, like, create in your head what it actually looks like.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea that the Steelers are, like, you can there are very few needle-moving trades made in the NFL every year. You can certainly fill your depth with a trade. And maybe that's better than signing Tyler Boyd or bringing back Robert Woods, whatever. I don't think you're going to get an impact player very often. Maybe occasionally you can make it happen. But like what the Steelers did at the deadline last year is much, much, much more realistic in terms of what's out there and available. And that's not something that's really going to move the needle in terms of their chances of winning the division.
Do you get the sense it's just all going to be like an internal thing in terms of filling the void of Calvin Austin? Certainly with Jalen Ramsey, but Calvin Austin in the receiver room.
I mean, the receiving room was so weak to begin with that like it really should have some kind of external addition. What that does, I don't know. You know, like what I don't think you're getting like Jacoby Myers, right? Like somebody who's really going to move the needle for the whole team. You know, can you get somebody that's better than calling up Isaiah Hodgins from the practice squad?
1-3.
Yeah, probably.
By the way, keeping an eye on teams falling out here. The Raiders are 1-3 to start the season, so I don't know. We'll see. I'm not saying that I think it's going to happen, but it's certainly one that everybody should be keeping an eye on. You look at teams that the Saints are 0-4. Chris Olave. I know a lot of people throwing that one out there. Don't know that they'll do it.
I don't see why they would do it. But Steelers should absolutely do it if it's plausible.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. I know that there's some more questions that we got to get to here. And we will do so throughout the week. But we also have, Alan, our SN Plus subscribers live stream that we got to make sure that we are on time for after I get this up. So we'll save those. We'll keep those in the bank and get to them hopefully tomorrow after. Oh, wait. This is considered the bye week, right? So no Tomlin Tuesday because that would be for the following one.
Correct.
So dang.
We will have a practice, but there will not be Tomlin.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, all right. Until tomorrow's episode, Alan, tell the people they can find you.
A Saunders _PGH on X, Instagram, TikTok, and Blue Sky. PGH Steelers Now, the site's account, SteelersNow.com. Sign up for SN Plus. Although, if you are watching this, it is already too late to join our subs only live stream for the month of September. But you still get all the best content from me, DB, the rest of the Steelers Now team. You get an ad-free reading experience at SteelersNow.com. You get the undying love, support, and dedication of your favorite local journalists, which is worth more than I can describe. And we'll have another one in October, so you can come around for that one as well. Anyone can like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications here on the YouTube channel. So I feel like we get these big jump, like it'll go like 1, 2, and then it's just like boom. I don't know. We were in the 70s, now we're in the 90s, 16,700, and man, this one's hard to come up with an obscure one. Jarvis Jones.
Okay. Friend of my other pod, Chris Wormley.
Oh, very good answer. Very good.
95,
answer.
by the way, is the number that we are on here. So,
of course, Greg Lloyd,
Benton,
sort of standard bearer for that number for the Steelers for a long time. Keanu Benton, the current wearer of it. I wasn't able to think of any others. There's a couple good ones here. Alonzo Jackson was a very notorious draft bust out of Florida State in the early 2000s. Mike Jones joined the Steelers on a 1-year contract exactly in about 2001 or 2002. And then Richard Ziegler, who was a special teams outside linebacker, played very briefly for the Steelers. And then much more notably later after his playing career, was arrested as part of a prostitution ring in Las Vegas.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He was actually with the Steelers, and that was kind of the end of his career. I think he ended up getting cleared of the charges of that, but that was how his Steelers career ended. Got arrested for allegedly running a prostitution ring. So
the afternoon drive van. The afternoon drive van was just going on a straight track. You just took a sharp left turn, right? That was not what
into a seedy neighborhood, apparently.
Jeez. Yeah, man. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have to. I kind of want to read about this story, to be honest. I don't have time right now.
Oh, you're not aware of the tale of? Yeah, look up the story of Richard Ziegler. A very interesting part of Steelers history.
Question for you and as well, the people in the comments, get some opinions here. I mentioned yesterday, I got to somehow figure out a way to work in the get in the van thing. People are obviously latching on to that, thanks to our friend Ken up in New Hampshire. But it almost doesn't feel right to close the show with it, right? Because it's like, I don't know. I almost feel like it needs to be the opening. So I'm trying to figure out a way to work it in, and I'm not coming up with something. I feel like it's a better open than it is close, and I don't know how to do it.
I don't know.
And I'm looking for ideas from the people that watch or listen to the show, because you're going to have to be the ones to hear me say it. So, what's the best way to work this in? I got to do it for my guy Ken, because you guys are all starting to kind of get on board with the get in the van. We saw it in the post game show, like 10 different people were saying it. So, but anyways, we will be over. Well, if you guys hopefully you watched that already, the SN Plus subscribers only, and then you're watching this back. So leave us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. You're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast from. We are there. Just search Steelers Afternoon Drive. Do the same thing on TikTok. Be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe, all that good stuff. You can find me everywhere, Zachary Smith, PGH. For Alan Saunders and myself, thanks for jumping in, taking another ride on the Steelers Afternoon Drive.